Brad Treliving and the Toronto Maple Leafs are making massive moves ahead of opening day of the 23-24 season. Some predictable and some not so much. In today's video, we're going to break down the Sam Lafferty trade, Fraser Minten making the Leafs, Martin Jones somehow clearing waivers, and an unexpected name that got sent down to the Toronto Marlies. Welcome back to Third Man In. I'm Zack Phillips, and today we're going to break down a bunch of things that have been going on with the Toronto Maple Leafs over the last few days as we prepare for the first game of the 2023-2024 regular season. So, let's first and foremost start with the Sam Lafferty trade. Look, we knew a bunch of guys were going to have to be moved on from this team, whether it be getting waived, whether it was being sent down to the Marlies, or whether it was going to come in the form of trade. We just didn't know who. We had seen the likes of Calle Jarnkrok, Nick Robertson, Sam Lafferty, their names being thrown out there. We knew certain guys were going to be sent down to the Marlies, but we didn't know what order things were going to come in, how many guys were going to have to move, or what those moves were going to look like. And then the first one hit. Sam Lafferty traded to the Vancouver Canucks for a 5th round pick. Now, I saw a lot of discourse going basically every single direction from Leafs fans on Twitter the other day. And if you go and follow me on there, at Zack Phil on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it now, you'll see some tweets that I had put out about the trade immediately after it had happened and kind of just responding to people, even people on either side freaking out or people being excited about the trade. I think that this was just an acceptable trade for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I don't think this was bad or excellent. At the end of the day, you don't want to lose Sam Lafferty for nothing because he wasn't a bad player, but you're not going to really get a lot for him. And that being said, you're not really going to find that great of a spot for him in your lineup. And when he's coming in at $1.15 million per year for at least one more year, and you are kind of tucked up against the cap here, that space is valuable when you can find other guys who can do exactly what he's doing right now as well, if not better than he currently can. So you move on to him to Vancouver for a 5th round pick. Perfect. Let's remember the original trade. You got Jake McCabe at 50% retained, Sam Lafferty, Chicago's 5th round pick in 2024 conditional, their 5th round pick in 2025 conditional, and then you sent the other way a 1st in 2025, a 2nd in 2026, Joey Anderson, who Chicago just waived, by the way, and Pavel Gogolev. You didn't give up overly much, and to be honest, most of that payment was for Jake McCabe, and not really even just Jake McCabe, but Jake McCabe at 50% retained, and a few years out of Jake McCabe at 50% retained. So to me, I don't think you really gave up too much. Did you maybe get back as much as you theoretically paid for Sam Lafferty in the initial trade? Probably not, but to get anything in order to open up cap space to keep some of these guys around, I think is good. And truthfully, you're going to look at like Noah Gregor, Nick Robertson, who we'll get to later, but Fraser Minten, who you decide to keep around. Like, there were other pieces around here, around the organization, that you decide, hey, we want these pieces around. We want to keep these guys. We think they can do that. And by the way, each one of these guys comes in at a cheaper salary. So you're just going to free up a little bit of money, free up a little bit of roster space, and Sam Lafferty, you're out of here with 1 year remaining on your contract. So no one's really too upset about that situation with Sam Lafferty there. Now, I will say, interesting move from Vancouver's standpoint. They continue to give up picks and pieces for the future for right now. If you're in Vancouver, I don't really know how you justify this one and sit there and say, yep, this is another great move by this organization. I think that's a strange move all around. I think that's a strange decision. I personally can't really understand it from their side of things, but this was the best offer that the Leafs got. I think this is a good opportunity for them to free up some space. So there you go. Now, there's a couple more pieces that we'll get to along the way here in terms of what this did by moving Sam Lafferty, but the one other one that we kind of figured was coming based on roster size, how many players you had at the position, and on top of that salary was Martin Jones was going to be waived, going to be sent down. Well, I had made the prediction that Martin Jones wouldn't be with this Leafs organization, not just the Maple Leafs, the NHL club, but the organization as a whole ahead of opening day, because I foresaw him being sent down. And typically with the Leafs, their track record is that these guys that they sign, these extra pieces that they have to waive, they get picked up. They get signed, they get claimed off waivers, or they get traded for, whatever it is, and they just don't end up being a part of the Leafs coming out of training camp. Martin Jones, to me, was a guy that I was actually kind of surprised had even made it through most of free agency, and then deciding to sign with the Leafs, I was like, all right, I don't really get it, not from the Leafs standpoint, but I couldn't believe that other teams out there hadn't kind of swooped in and offered him the same contract. But nonetheless, the Leafs do sign him, and then you sit there and you go, okay, well, he's not going to make it out of camp because Leafs traditionally lose these guys. Has a great preseason and doesn't get claimed. So I'm sitting there all surprised that he makes it through, and then we see the one wrinkle that kind of changes everything. Chris Johnson tweeted out this one key piece of information for this Leafs contract, which is just an absolutely genius move by Brad Treliving. Martin Jones is due to be paid a bonus of $100,000 tomorrow. So for any team who would have claimed him off the waiver wire, they would have had to immediately pay him a bonus of a $100,000 right away. And he's sitting there at an $875,000 per year for a 1-year contract, obviously. But he would have just had to be paid $100,000 like that. The Leafs basically just said, we don't care. We've got all the money in the world. The only worry that we have is cap space. It's not actual money or dollars out of our pocket. So $100,000 bonus to maybe deter some other teams from swooping in and picking you up. Done deal. Easy for the Leafs to do. And I would have to imagine that that would have kept some teams away from going out and just immediately swooping up Martin Jones off the waiver wire. So interesting one for them there. I think this is amazing for the Leafs because if anything happens at all, injuries, low level of play, whatever it is, Martin Jones is going to be sitting there available to you with the Toronto Marlies to come up and join the squad this season. So that was the next piece that I knew was going to go down. I was interested to see how it was going to go, if they were going to try to trade him, whatever it was, but sneaks through. The Leafs keep him around the organization. You've got him there in the Marlies. I think this is a perfect move by Brad Treliving, being able to slide him on down there into the AHL and just have him still within the organization. But obviously, as I said, this was going to have to open up roster spaces and cap space because you were having to make some decisions about who was going to be on this team. So that leads us to the next thing here. Fraser Minten makes the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, there's obviously caveats to this. If he plays 9 games, that's the max he can play before he plays 10, and then he burns a year of his entry-level contract. So if he does that, 1 of his 3 years of an ELC is gone. Now, this is my thought. He played really well during the preseason. He deserved the roster spot. And if he was just going to get sent back down to the CHL because they were going to sit there and say, oh, well, we have cap issues, blah, 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 even though he had kind of out-earned a spot from other guys that were here in camp, I think that would have been a little bit of a slap in the face to a guy who had fought for this spot, had fought for an NHL position, and quite honestly earned it throughout the entire camp and through preseason games. I think he deserved to be here. And if you're just going to say, well, you're a kid, you can go to the CHL, even though you actually deserved a spot here, we're not going to keep you around because of the cap. I think that's a little bit of a disrespect to your prospects in a way. So they ultimately kind of make a multifaceted, good organization move and say, we're going to honor the fact that you played incredible and you deserve to be here. We are going to show you the respect of saying you put the work in, you fought for the spot, you fought for time and recognition here, and we're going to keep you around. And the other thing that this does from the Leafs standpoint, where it's not just, hey, good to your prospects and shows them if you put in the work and you fight for positions, we'll keep you around, but it also says, we're willing to take shots on younger guys who come in at cheaper contracts for us because they bring a different aspect. As mentioned here, Lafferty was $1.15 million per year. A guy like Fraser Minten is coming in on an entry-level contract in the $700,000 range. $900,000 range. Like, you're putting guys into those bubbles where they're going to come in on cheap contracts, take away from some of that. They got young legs, young energy, a new look on the game, a new look on the organization, a new level of excitement. I think that this is just a good move all the way through. I think it sends a positive message to your prospects. I think it sends a positive message to the rest of the league and other young guys out there who might be looking coming out of college as UFAs and say, they'll take a shot on guys if I fight for a position, if I work hard and actually earn a spot. And it's just a good organizational move to say, we're going to spend less money on a player who can do what we had a guy doing here for $1.15 million. No brainer to me. Now, the worry with this is a few things. If he is playing average through the first 9 games, you do not keep him around. You send him back. You don't waste the time. You don't waste his year. You don't waste his time of, hey, you're going to be in the press box, out of the press box. You're going to be here to learn. No. We can't be doing that at this point in time. Send the kid back to the WHL. Let him go learn. Let him go dominate there, and then come back next year and let's run it back. If he plays average through the first 9 games through an NHL schedule, no one's going to blame him. He's a first-year player in the NHL. If he's playing very, very good, that's when the tough decision comes. But I think at that point in time, you got to keep the kid around, because if he fights his way into this spot where you almost have to look at him and start debating, do we send him back down? I think that's when you kind of get to the point where you say, we can't. Let's keep him up here. Let's keep him around. That whole thing will be interesting. The final piece to it all will be World Juniors. He wants to go. He wants to play for Canada. This is his World Junior year. Do you risk keeping him around and send him to the World Juniors at Christmas time and then bring him back after? Do you just send him back to the WHL after his 9 games and say, hey, kid, go dominate, go play in the World Juniors. We'll see you after. Like, how do you kind of manage that? That'll be a conversation between Brad Treliving and him, but we have seen players before be loaned so that they can go to the World Juniors and then rejoin their teams after. I wouldn't be surprised if he manages to stick around, if that's the case. Now, the final piece of all of this that I kind of wanted to look into, you have a bunch of players that clear waivers: Simon Benoit, Kyle Clifford, Dylan Gambrell, Martin Jones, obviously, William Lagesson, Maxime Lajoie. There's a few players that got sent down. They didn't need to clear waivers, and one of these names is very interesting to me. So you see Nick Abruzzese, Max Ellis, Dennis Hildeby, Roni Hirvonen, Pontus Holmberg, Topi Niemela, Marshall Rafai, Logan Shaw, Ryan Tverberg, and Nick Robertson. The other guys aren't as interesting in my opinion. I think we kind of expect them to be sent down. I think some of those guys can come up and down. We'll see how they go throughout this year, and then how needs are in this lineup based on injuries, illness, all that kind of stuff. The one player that I think is on the final legs, and if he doesn't go down to the Marlies and light things up, he is maybe done in Toronto, but potentially have his chance at being an everyday NHL player be shot, is Nick Robertson. This guy's had chance after chance after chance. Unfortunately, a lot of it has been involved in injuries that he's dealt with. But at the same time, when he's got his opportunities in the NHL, he's never really dominated or grabbed a hold of it and just gone and run and said, you cannot send me back down, like what Fraser Minten did in preseason, like what he did throughout camp. Nick Robertson never really grabbed a hold of that opportunity and said, you cannot send me down. I think he's on the final legs of his opportunity as a professional hockey player. I'm interested to see how he does when he first gets sent down to the Marlies. I don't really see him in an opportunity to get called back up here to the big club over the next little while, especially based on cap and roster size. So I think he's kind of squeezed out from that standpoint. So Nick Robertson, go down to the Marlies, start to light it up. If he does light it up and they still can't find a spot for him back in the big club, then comes your opportunity if you're Brad Treliving in the Leafs, where I've been saying for a year and a half now, you might have to just move on from this kid. As much as you'd love to draft and develop and be proud of your prospects, sometimes it just doesn't work out the way that you expect it to. So maybe this is one of those guys, and maybe now is the time where you have to look at it and say, we weren't wrong, but we weren't 100% right. This kid's not a superstar, and it is what it is. We got to accept it. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts. There was a lot broken down here today. Lafferty trade, what are your thoughts there? Are you surprised that Martin Jones got cleared through waivers and that nobody picked him up? Do you like Fraser Minten being here? Do you think he's going to make it past the 9 games? Do you hope he makes it past? Would you like him sent down? Look forward to hear it all. And finally, what are your thoughts on Nick Robertson? Is this the final straw for him as a professional in the NHL world? AHL, Europe, whatever it may be. Maybe he's got a future elsewhere. But is it the end of his NHL legs? Is it the end of his time here in Toronto? I want to hear it all in the comments. And while you're at it, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. With the Leaf season starting up here, we're going to be doing post-game live streams. You won't want to miss a single one. So make sure to hit that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything that goes down. But Leafs fans, this is the first time in a while that I've been really excited about a season. Look forward to hearing about it if you guys are as well. And as always, keep Leafing.